What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I'm LotusAsakura, the one who never knows best, and in today's video I kind of just want to ramble, I guess, a little bit about something that's been on my mind lately and something that's like really relevant to the conversations currently being had on social media in regards to fighting games. And future Lotus just jumping in to let you guys know that the video you're about to watch I actually recorded yesterday before Tekken 8 went on maintenance and before we officially got the season 2 patch, and I wasn't actually going to post this, as you hear me kind of like imply at the end of the video. But after seeing the new season and the new patch, I figured I was going to post it anyway. And I'm not gonna lie, man, this isn't going to be the only video like this. I'm probably going to have some more videos coming very soon, giving thoughts and feelings and opinions and discussing the kind of climate right now in the community and the response and everything like that. So don't be shocked if it feels like I'm like beating a dead horse or like harping on a point when you see 2 or 3 more videos pop up covering this subject and the game and everything right now. That being said, yeah, this just feels relevant. I wasn't going to post it, but I decided to. Now I wish I would have just dropped it yesterday, but I digress. Here we go. Enjoy. I apologize in advance if I'm not particularly coherent or if I don't come across as though I'm making like a sound point, because I haven't thought this through very thoroughly. Also, I apologize even further if you can hear the landscapers outside my door right now with their leaf blowers, because of course yeah. Anyway, there's a realization that I came to recently that might have been obvious to a lot of you guys because I've basically said it in a matter of words, but it's something that I hadn't like articulated in this fashion before. And when I finally did it, when it clicked in my head, I was really disappointed, and it kind of like opened my eyes a lot more. And that point that I want to stress and that realization that I came to is that the target audience for fighting games today isn't people who like fighting games. And that might be like a hot take or a cold take to you, or maybe it's like, yeah, no shit, like I don't know. But the thing is, we've talked a lot about how fighting games are catering more and more to the casual audience, and to some extent I understand, like it makes sense, right? The casual audience is what makes up the majority of the player base in any given fighting game, and they're the ones who create the majority of the sales, which is of course giving these companies and these developers and these publishers revenue. I get it, it's a business, they're trying to make as much money as possible, meaning that they have to sell as many copies and DLC packs as possible. I understand that, that's not lost on me. The problem is that what I never really realized is that it's not just about the casual audience of people who like already play or like buy fighting games. It's actually about the people who don't like fighting games. They're trying to get people who don't normally play, enjoy, or buy fighting games to buy and play fighting games. And again, to some degree, that makes sense. I understand you're trying to expand the genre and get people who don't already enjoy it to enjoy it, but at the cost of the enjoyment of those who already do. It feels to me, and you may or may not agree with this, that the people who are already enjoyers of the genre have been basically neglected when it comes to a lot of the decision making and the development of these games. A lot of the concepts or aspects that a lot of us currently enjoy about fighting games are already enjoyed, feel like they're being stripped away like layer by layer. And this isn't necessarily supposed to be like a rant or like pessimistic video or like negative video. If it ends up becoming that, then it is what it is. And this isn't really about any one game in particular as well, because this is relevant right now. I see it a lot because of Tekken and also because of some recent 2XKO stuff. This goes back to like with me playing Dragon Ball FighterZ and even like Street Fighter 6, Mortal Kombat 1, like basically like every modern fighting game, Guilty Gear Strive, Grand Blue, whatever. There's, you know, debates and conversations about execution in fighting games and the skill floor and the skill ceiling and accessibility. By the way, very, very, very important to note before I go further, that when we talk about accessibility in fighting games, or at least when I'm talking about it in this video, I do not mean accessibility in terms of features that are designed to assist those who are disabled. So if whether you're visually impaired, hard of hearing, whatever the case may be, when we say accessibility, or at least when I say accessibility, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about lowering the barrier of entry for casual or newer players to fighting games who don't already have a certain level of experience or skill level in them. And lowering that skill floor, lowering that barrier of entry has been on the agenda for developers for a while now. Like a lot of them have come out and directly said that we want this game to be accessible, we want it to be beginner friendly, etc., etc. We've seen this time and time again, and so they have worked vigorously at lowering that barrier of entry for the newer player, for the casual player, for the beginner player. The problem is, though, is that this is something that they've been working at for like over a decade at this point. And so my question is, when is enough? And I'm not trying to be like some elitist, right? I know that's, I'm gonna get comments like that, oh, you're just being an elitist and this and that. Because look, I don't consider myself a particularly great fighting game player. I understand that I'm better than the average person for whatever that's worth. That doesn't really matter to me. I'm, you know, if I'm an above average player, there are still mountains and mountains above me in terms of skill level and everything like that. So it's not like I'm saying that like only the best of the best of the best should be able to enjoy fighting games and be able to pull off certain things or whatever, but there should be a certain level of execution or skill or knowledge that is required in order to play the game in a certain way or at a certain level, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that that's been completely eradicated, but it's something that's been chipped away at over time. So anyway, this is something that they've been working at for a while now. And my question is like, at what point is enough? Because you keep lowering the floor further and further and further. And I really do wonder, like, has that worked? Have fighting games become more popular because developers have been lowering that floor and getting more people into the game? I don't really know. I guess I'd have to look into like some of the sales figures and everything like that. But even then, like, even if like games are like selling better, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a direct correlation to the fact that the games have been simplified, and that's why they're more popular, because there are games that haven't surpassed the sales figures of like previous entries in their installment, whether it's series like you know, Street Fighter or Tekken or Mortal Kombat or whatever. That being said, Tekken 8 is on pace to be one of, if not the best selling Tekken game of all time. Time will tell if it actually ends up becoming that. But yeah, like I said, it's not really about Tekken in particular, but if we even take a look at Tekken, the risk reward in this game is so incredibly skewed in the favor of reward. And when it comes to like barrier of entry, like execution, they have taken away a lot of that. And it's not to say that difficult things don't still exist in the game. Like, yeah, like doing a perfect electric with Kazuya, still very difficult. Acid Rain with Lee, very difficult. Taunt Jet Upper with Brian, still very difficult. In fact, it was Taunt Jet Upper was even easier in older games. I believe it's Tekken 5 DR. You have a few extra frames to do it. It's not a frame perfect input. So there are things that have gotten harder, but for the most part, things have gotten more difficult. You have running moves into stance, into 50-50s, Jin doing one button electrics, all Mishima's getting electrics without having to be a just frame when you're in heat, and everything like that, you know what I mean? And when it comes to Dragon Ball FighterZ, right, and again, I apologize if I'm all over the place. Like I said, ain't like I really wrote this down and thought it out. I just want to get a lot off my chest. In Dragon Ball FighterZ, that was a game that was designed to be very accessible to the casual player. They want you to be able to pick the game up, mash some buttons, have some fun, do cool stuff with your favorite Dragon Ball characters. Okay, cool. I was of the opinion that Dragon Ball FighterZ initially was a beautiful balance of having a low skill floor, a high ceiling, you know, having a low barrier of entry, being easy to pick up and play. But like any fighting game, it has a certain level of depth and mastery that you can achieve if you put in enough work and effort. And I thought that they balanced that all really, really well. I thought it was like the perfect game for like people who just want to mash buttons with Dragon Ball characters, but if you want to take it seriously, you can. People had their gripes and their criticisms, but I felt like the concept, the design they came up with for the initial version of Dragon Ball FighterZ was really, really good. It had a really good skeleton, okay? But for whatever reason, they felt like it wasn't enough. The game had to be even crazier. It had to be even easier. It had to be even more accessible than it already was. Auto combos weren't enough. Super dash wasn't enough. Now we needed full screen EX moves that give you medium scale combos on hit and allow for a wall bounce so that you don't even have to vanish. And you know, like all this stuff that also like eliminate blue life and etc. etc. It's like, oh, whoa. Like, we already had all these things that made the game easy and accessible. We had super dash, so that, you know, it was like the neutral skip, right? We already had auto combos where you can just push one button and do an entire combo. Two buttons really, because you could do medium auto combo or light auto combo, heavy as well, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you pull off a super by doing medium auto combo. We eliminated DP inputs. There's only quarter circles in Dragon Ball FighterZ. I believe now there's a few, like well, not now, there were a couple like down inputs like 2-2S, so like Android 18 barrier, like UI Goku DP, maybe a couple others. I think Janemba has one as well. But there is like no super complicated like motion inputs, right? It's basically all quarter circles. You don't have to learn how to do a pretzel input or a 360 or a 720 or a pentagram like we're playing Arcana Heart or something, you know what I'm saying? Or, you know, like I say, even just like a DP motion. You don't have to do any of that. Like, you do a DP in that game by doing a quarter circle. Cool, you know? Already a little bit controversial in doing something like that, but you know, wasn't too egregious, at least in my opinion. And then you start pushing the envelope further and further, because the point at that, the goal at that point isn't to like increase the level of enjoyment for people who are already playing the game, you're trying to cater to the audience who isn't playing the game, as opposed to worrying about your core fan base. And that just feels like I'm seeing that over and over and over again with all these fighting games, where they're not worried about the people who are already playing the game for the most part. They're worried about the people who aren't, and they're trying to figure out how they can get them to start playing. Now, when it comes to bounce adjustments and everything like that, like obviously they're to some degree, to some extent, taking into account the outcries of the core fan base, of the core community, the people who are playing these games. Because when you look at like Tekken 8 and we see that they nerfed Jin down 2 or King Muscle Armor, right? It's like, hey guys, we were listening, but that's also just like a little like, I can't think of the phrase of the word right now, but you know what I'm saying? It's like they're taking a step forward and then multiple steps back, where it's like, hey, we heard the hardcore fan base, you guys said this move was overtuned, so we nerfed it. But then we also buffed this same exact character in like 14 other ways that make them even dumber than they already were. Like, so there's no real progression being made there in terms of like the direction that the hardcore player base wants the game to go. And it's the same thing with Dragon Ball FighterZ, and that's why I compare Tekken 8 to DBFZ. And I know I talk about DBFZ all the time on this channel. Well, not recently, because I stopped playing the game, obviously. So I try not to just bash it every chance that I get. But when I come to making comparisons, that's the game that I'm the most known for. It's the game I've had the most investment in. It's the game I'm still to this day the most knowledgeable about. So it's easy to make those comparisons. But I feel like I'm just reliving and repeating history, where at some point in season 3, we were like, hey, stuff's getting a little bit out of hand. This is overtuned. This is going too far. This move is dumb. That character's broken. Like, we should kind of like chill out. And instead of like chilling out, they went even crazier and crazier and crazier and crazier and doubled down over and over and over and over again until they pushed out the majority of the people who were enjoying the game. Now, there are still people to this day who are playing that game and enjoying it, but it's a big removal from what it was initially. Dragon Ball FighterZ was at one point the most popular and biggest game in the world. Now, nothing lasts forever. That game is 2025, so that game is 7 years old this year, right? As of January 26th. 7 years old. Nothing lasts forever, you know, except Melee, I guess. But like at the end of the day, like we always knew that it's par for the course. Fighting games get less popular over time. Now there are some anomalies here or there where you see a game get a spike in popularity or an increase because it gets featured at a big event like Evo, or it randomly gets a new update, or it gets rolled back after this game didn't have rollback when it came out 10, 15 years ago, whatever the case may be. But I don't really think that's going to happen with DBFZ. Regardless, it ended up going in a direction that a lot of people who were already playing the game found really unagreeable, so they stopped playing, myself included. All of your favorite top players and creators who used to grind DBFZ on a very regular basis, 99% of them don't play the game anymore. And it's not because we just got burned out of Dragon Ball FighterZ itself, if I make sense, or like we just, it's not because of not enjoying the concept of the game or because necessarily the game got old. Its fall off is because of the direction they took the game when it came to the patches, when it came to the updates. If I was still, like if Dragon Ball FighterZ was still on season 1 or season 2, I'm very confident I would still be playing that game. Even if it was in like the original version of season 3. And granted, each one of these versions was not perfect. Far from it. All had their flaws, all needed balance adjustments and everything like that. But what it ended up becoming is so much worse than what any of those were, in my opinion. There are some people who still enjoy it, but it is what it is. And I feel like with Tekken, we're going through that all over again. Where it's like, instead of like actually changing the game for the better, they're more so like, how can we make things as easy to perform as possible and reward players for hitting buttons and make them feel better about themselves? Which is so stupid in my opinion, because not everybody who plays a fighting game is gonna feel good about themselves. They shouldn't. If you don't put in a certain level of work or effort, why should you be rewarded for it? Why should you be able to play on the same plane, or the same field, or the same level as somebody who actually does grind and practice? And I feel that especially for a player like myself, where again, I'm an above average player, I would say, again, for whatever that's worth. Label you want to give me doesn't really matter. I've had people say that I'm a scrub and other people who think I'm godlike. So, and everything in between. It just depends on your perspective. It's all about perspective, right? But in every fighting game that's out these days, when you've played fighting games enough, when you have a certain level of experience, you can kind of tell. Like you can just tell, right? When your opponent doesn't really know what they're doing, right? When they're just kind of like mashing in random places, doing random moves. And I get criticized in my comments all the time, probably by players who are equally as ignorant as the person that I'm facing. It's like, why are you always talking about this person mashing or being random? It's like, well, because they're mashing and being random. But you get a good idea of like when the person you're playing that doesn't really know what they're doing too much. But then it begs the question, it's like, hold up, this person doesn't really have a clue what they're doing. How are they the same rank as me? We've all run into that. And I don't think that's something that's brand new to fighting games, but I think it's more prevalent now than ever before, where you have a rank like Tekken King, Tekken Emperor, Tekken God, Tekken God Supreme. Like these should be really high ranks that only really good players get to. I'm seeing God of Destructions in Tekken have a defense ranking in the 40s and 50s. To me, that's unacceptable. That is a problem. That is an issue, because even if you go back to Tekken 7, even though that game also had rank inflation, that is a game where, at least during that first season, if you were a mighty ruler, you was kind of nasty. I never saw a player who was like mighty ruler or higher that didn't have a certain level of defense, that couldn't backdash, that didn't have a certain level of knowledge on the characters and the game. Now, obviously, as time went on, you have inflation, right? So you have players being able to get to the absolute highest rank in the game, and you're seeing the overall skill level depreciate at certain ranks as the good players actually get to the very top, and the players who weren't so great are slowly creeping their way up, right? Myself as a player, I was a red rank in Tekken 7. You know what I'm saying? By the end of Tekken 7, and granted, there was a couple years where I wasn't playing the game very heavily, got back into it toward the end with Kunimitsu and everything like that, but I was red ranks, like high red ranks, okay? Tekken King, Tekken Emperor, floating around there right now in Tekken 8. Probably could push to Tekken God if I really, really grinded the game a little bit more, but regardless, like that's so much higher than where I was. Like I never made it to purple in 7. I'm like 3 ranks away from the highest rank in the game in 8. And yes, I do think that I've improved a lot as a fighting game player and as a Tekken player. I think I'm much better at 8 than I am at 7. But I don't know if I'm that much better to be like that many ranks higher, because there's so much I'm still bad at, so much I still have left to learn, so many matchups I don't know, strings I don't know, execution things that I'm still not able to do, right? But I said to say that even if I am somebody who benefits from the lowering of the skill floor and simplifying these games, it doesn't mean that I necessarily like it, because I'm somebody who can appreciate seeing games played at a certain level, and somebody who wants to aspire to be able to play at that level as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to be Arslan Ash or Nee to watch them play and go like, whoa, that's sick. Yo, these guys are really, really good. Now, granted, there is some context, some nuance that you might not fully grasp or understand or have when you're watching, right? There's some things that you will miss if you don't have a certain level of knowledge, but I think anybody can pull up and watch Tekken 8 and appreciate greatness when they see it, you know what I'm saying? And again, that's also by design, because they are trying to simplify things and make it so very apparent when somebody's performing very well in the game. But yeah, Tekken 8 very much is focused on the spectator aspect of it. I think this is the most like esports that they've been with Tekken in the franchise's history, and I think they might have even said that themselves at some point, where there was a focus or an emphasis on that. And even if they didn't say it, it's very apparent just by how they're handling things, right? But yeah, it's funny too, because I definitely I spoke about this on Twitter at some point, and somebody was like nigga, you're a Tekken King Hwarang player, like you're a scrub, like you are the casual. And it's like, whether you consider me casual or not, it doesn't really matter or take away from my point. My point still stands. I still feel the way that I feel about it. I don't think you have to be a top player to feel this way about the games, you know what I mean? But anyway, the accessibility, I think, is something that I don't know how much further it can go before we're just like, here's a one button TOD, you know what I'm saying? In these games, you take away you add auto combos, you add super dash, you add things like heat and rage, you take away motion inputs, you know what I'm saying? You have games like DNF Duel and Grand Blue Fantasy, right? Which I think those are cool, fun games. I'm not here to like shit on any of these games necessarily, more so like on the philosophy that a lot of these developers seem to have these days. But like you remove motion inputs, you know what I'm saying? Like, how much further are we going to go? And again, like it's not about being an elitist, because I don't think I'm that good at these games, okay? I don't think I'm that great. But the rewarding feeling that you're supposed to get from fighting games, I feel like is being diminished by what they're doing to these games. There's a certain level of accomplishment you get when you win, a sense of like a hit of dopamine that goes off in your brain, or at least for me, that I don't feel the same way about in other games. There are other I play other genres, mostly JRPGs, but I play other genres here or there, not a lot, but here or there. But I don't think there's any better feeling I get than like performing really well in a fighting game. Especially, like, here's an example, right? How many times have you sat down in training mode and tried to learn a new combo with any character in any game? Trying to learn a new combo. You know that feeling you get when you sat there and practiced that combo for hours, maybe even days, maybe even weeks, and you finally pull it off? Incredible, right? Like, euphoric. And then that gets amplified even more when you pull it off on an actual opponent, whether that's online or even let alone in a tournament, right? Worked so hard at this combo, I'm nasty, that was sick. And then it just becomes part of your bread and butter. something that you work so hard that it just becomes a regular part of your kit. It's something that you're just able to do on command. Incredible feeling seeing that payoff. I remember in Dragon Ball FighterZ, again, always gonna go back to DBFZ, right? When Base Vegeta came out, I wanted to play that character very bad. 2018, that character released, Season 1 DLC. Key blast loops. Couldn't do them. Tried very hard for hours. The day he came out, I was in training mode for hours trying to do that. Seeing so many other players just pick him up and just do it right away. I'm like, damn, I'm ass. I suck. Tried for hours to do it. Couldn't. Next day, at it again. Hours in training mode, trying to do this combo. Couldn't do it. Days go by. Weeks go by. Couldn't do it. All right, guess I'm not playing Base Vegeta. I'm just not good. I'm just not skilled enough to play this character. Was what it was. Moved on, played some other characters. But I always went back to him because I really thought he was cool and I really wanted to play him. Season 2 comes around, 2019. I picked the character up again. I still can't do the combos, but I'm having more and more fun. This is also at a point where he's considered low tier and people aren't playing. And I'm like, hey, I think this character is actually still very, very strong. Sonic Fox ends up playing the character. Basically just top 3. But a whole nother year goes by of me playing the character and I'm maining this character at this point. I still can't do the combos. 2020 rolls around, 2 years after this character comes out, I finally do the simple version of the combo, but it felt so good to pull out. I was very proud of myself. And we're talking about in a game that's considered an easy game, right? This game is already considered easy and they somehow continue to make things even easier and easier and easier. But regardless, pulling off like the 5H key blast loops for the first time, I was so proud. And eventually when I pulled off like the air key blast loops, and that still wasn't even like the most difficult version, but like there was a certain sense of accomplishment, a sense of reward, you know what I mean? That was something I worked hard at and I was able to pull it off. And then doing like the mid-screen loops. I remember I did the mid-screen loops like in City of Mayhem once, and like the stream was popping off and Bum was going crazy. I'm like, yeah, that's me, you know what I'm saying? And I just feel like when you continue to dumb the game down and make things simpler and simpler, you diminish that rewarding feeling, that dopamine hit. You don't feel as accomplished. You know what I'm saying? There's some people who do just want to be handed everything in life. I'm not one of those people. That being said, if anybody out there wants to hand your boy $1 million, I'm not gonna say no. But like, if you ever worked for literally anything in your life, whether it's in sports, whether it's in fighting games, whether it's in life, in your career, like anything at all, if you've ever worked for something, you understand that sense of accomplishment, that sense of fulfillment that you get knowing how hard you worked and that you earned for it. And when you start making these things easier to do, you don't get that same feeling. So whilst a new player who's never been good at fighting games before might pick up Tekken 8 for 5 minutes, pull off a combo, like, oh wow, I'm sick nasty at the game, that was really cool, that was fun, and they put the game down and don't pick it up ever again, players who've already been playing the game, they're not getting that. And like I said, and that's when I kind of realized it's like, oh well, they don't care about that. What Michael Jackson said, all I want to say is that they don't really care about us. And it's kind of how it feels, because these games aren't catered toward fighting game players. They're catered toward FPS players and people who play Call of Duty and Overwatch and what 2K or whatever. People who don't play fighting games, that's who they're aiming at. That's who they're trying to entice with a lot of these changes and these systems and these mechanics and the way that they continue to develop and release these games. It feels very tone deaf when we look at like the Tekken talk, right? Which I think I spoke about it already, but it's like, not in this video, but maybe in a previous video. I don't even know who that was for. Because you would imagine, at least from my perspective, that the Tekken talk should be something where it's like we're catering this toward the hardcore fan base who keeps up with Tekken on a regular basis and is like really into the game and like grinds or whatever. But then they showed things that would only appeal to people who like aren't like that into the game, and maybe they just are that out of touch to where they thought we were gonna think that shit was cool. But I don't know. But like, that can't be true, because Michael Murray and Harada specifically, like, they're way too tapped in on Twitter to not have known better. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. It's really weird. It's really weird. Yeah, I've been sitting here rambling for a minute. Like I said, I don't really know what the point of this was. I just had some things I wanted to get off my chest and talk about. It's been almost 25 minutes of me just yapping. I don't even know if I'm gonna upload this or not, but it feels good to have gotten that off my chest, even if it just went out into the ether and I don't post this anywhere. But yeah, man, it's not that I think fighting games need to be all like one frame links and like taunt jet upper level execution moves and things like that. It's just that I think when you're performing things that are very powerful, it should come at a cost. There should be some sort of risk. You know what I'm saying? Like when you whiff, I should be able to whiff punish. There should be more moves that are negative on block, so that if you take this risk, I'm able to block punish you. You know what I mean? If you don't do the optimal combo route, you shouldn't still be doing half of my health bar. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm speaking generally here, just like very vaguely, but it's just, yeah, a big reason why I stopped playing Dragon Ball FighterZ and some other games is that I just felt like the risk reward was getting far too skewed in the favor of the reward with very little risk. And to me, that's very frustrating and like infuriating as a player, where it's like my opponent is just doing dumb shit. And when they're successful, they're rewarded hugely for it. And when they're unsuccessful, it's like, okay, well, here's your mediocre punish, or, you know, whatever reward you're able to get to capitalize on their mistake. But yeah, man, I don't know. I don't think the floor needs to be any lower than it already is in fighting games, to be honest. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hit this video with a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't already, so you can stay tuned for all the awesome content I put on bringing you. With all that being said, that's pretty much all I have today. Remember, nothing can happen until you swing the bat. Later.